All right. Hey, everybody. How we doing? Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It is the week before Christmas. As you can see, very festive over here. We're getting ready here for the holidays. Going to do one last show before the end of the year. We appreciate you so much for watching The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in Florida politics, and I would say easily the most diverse conservative podcast in politics, possibly anywhere. Your host, Jonny Torres. We've got some great guests tonight. We appreciate you because we also got lots of things to talk about tonight. So go ahead and get ready in the comments section. Like, share, follow us on all of our social media platforms. You can find us just about anywhere. And you can also download the audio version of our podcast over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, and Odyssey, and now Samsung. Samsung has released their own podcast platform, so you can look for us there. Thank you to our new Samsung subscribers. We picked some up last week, and we appreciate you for listening. Let's go ahead and get right to it, since we've got a lot to talk about. And we also got a special guest with us tonight. So let's start from the top. Senator Joe Manchin is being credited with possibly killing not only the Build Back Better bill, but possibly all of Joe Biden's agenda, pretty much for the rest of the administration for the next 3 years. We'll kind of pick that apart because it's a little more complex than that, but nonetheless, it's going to be a fun topic. And now the senator from Oz. I don't know how many of you have ever watched the Oprah spinoff of the doctors and Dr. Oz. Well, Dr. Oz has decided not only to come out as a political candidate, but as a Republican, and causing all kinds of issues out there already. And of course, he's trying to capitalize on his fame and, maybe get somebody that actually knows about healthcare into our Congress. And we'll kind of see, test the waters on him as a candidate. Kamala and the God, Kamala Harris, went on Comedy Central's Charlemagne the God show. I don't even think that's the right title of the show, but if you are familiar with The Breakfast Club, he's one of the hosts on there, and now starting to cause a lot of news out of that show. Charlemagne the God, very big in the hip-hop scene, and took Kamala Harris and the Biden administration to task. We'll talk about that. And Tesla versus Senator Karen. It's Elon never disappoints. Always a fun guy to follow on social media. And, of course, his taxes or lack thereof have recently become an issue. And there's been some outspoken members of Congress who have let it be known that they are none too happy with him. And he's pushing back, as he should. So Team Elon here all the way. I'll just say that up front. But let's go ahead and get over to the big table and announce tonight's panelists for all these amazing topics we have for you today. Joining me, as always, from left to right, Mr. Anibal, David Cabrera. Oh,
I don't even have a mic.
There we go.
No, it's fine. I understand the worth of my opinion on the show.
I just got to make sure I got to keep you restrained.
I would love to see the restraint of the lights on your mic.
All right. And now, of course, now that the scarves are appropriate, it's that time of year. We got
64.
Got a cold front rolling in, so I'll allow it. Next to him, a new face on the show, and also in our local political scene. We're very excited to have him on the show to talk about what he's up to and possibly where he's headed. Joining us is Chase Harrison, County Commission District 7 here in Hillsborough County. He's a candidate on the Republican side and hopefully a future county commissioner here in Hillsborough County. How are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me here tonight.
Well, thanks for coming on. We're excited to, not only get to know you a little better, but, just banter about today's topics and current events. First, let's go ahead and get into a little bit of your background before we kind of touch on today's topics. What lit the match? What was the final straw that said, you know what, I need to get into the game. I need to run for office here.
That's actually probably the most common question I get asked as I'm going around the county meeting people. I believe in my case, it's just I'm tired of complaining. Nothing seems to be changing, and if I don't do it, who's going to at this point?
Sure, absolutely. Well, again, there's we've openly discussed here, and not that we want to get you in any trouble, but we've discussed some of the trials and tribulations and challenges of being a Republican here in Hillsborough County, both internal, external, and we appreciate you, stepping up to the plate because, it's not easy. Whether you volunteered on a campaign, worked on a campaign, or have been a candidate, we know that it requires an enormous commitment and a lot of work. And so how has that experience been for you so far?
Very positive. As you know, there's several Republican clubs scattered around the county. I believe there's 13 of them.
Yep.
For the last 6 months, I've been making my way and meeting people. And the resounding issues that I hear are people are concerned about their taxes and why the taxes keep going up. They don't seem to be getting any additional or new services.
Yep.
The penny sales tax that was eventually declared illegal by the Florida Supreme Court is still an issue. It's $512 million.
Right, which they're not refunding.
They
as
have
of yet.
not yet, even
Yep.
though they were mandated to. And when they asked, well, how do we return money? The state of Florida basically told them it isn't our problem. We don't know. You have to figure it out.
Wow.
And that's
Okay.
kind of been at a stalemate. They've made no progress so far. Have you gotten your check?
No.
Have you, Anibal? I haven't seen anything either.
Yeah.
And I believe what they're going to end up doing on that is, and I would certainly support this, is a sales tax holiday. If you buy a big ticket item like a car, that could be a significant amount of money.
Sure.
So what would happen is you wouldn't pay the sales tax to the county, just the state sales tax, and that money would then come out of where that money is in an escrow account until
Right.
it's depleted and then reinstate our sales tax.
So basically kind of reversing the process essentially because it was a sales tax. And so by creating a sales tax holiday, I think that's a great solution. I mean, obviously it'd be nice to get a check in the mail, from the government, kind of have that work in reverse for once. But I think that's a great idea, and hopefully that ends up being the case. A little bit about your background. I see here we've got one of your cards here. Again, votechaseharrison.com. For those of you watching, votechaseharrison.com if you want to go ahead and check him out. Air Force veteran.
I am. I was an intelligence analyst in the Air Force.
Awesome.
And assigned to U.S. Central Command was my last assignment here at McDill.
Well, lucky you.
Yeah, it was a busy time after September 11th. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
All right. Well, and how long has it been since you retired from the military?
I retired from the reserves in 2006.
Okay.
And I was a Tampa policeman at that point, and I retired from that in 2016.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you doubly. I mean, for all your work in our community.
Well, thank you.
And so you mentioned taxes. Again, what was that motivator? Was it taxes for you personally? What was the grinding issue that you felt that needed to be resolved for you to jump into this race?
Well, as you put, the final straw on the camel's back in my case was the penny sales tax.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah. And I remember when it was rescinded, and even at that point, I remember thinking to myself, well, how much can it be? It's only been on the books 2 years, less than.
Sure.
A penny on a dollar, a couple $100,000. Well, I was way off. It's $512 million, which has been an escrow account, so it's probably 514. I don't know what the new number would be.
Right. Well, and that's why we've had conversations here about the half-cent tax that went to the school district, and now here they are a year later crying poverty again,
right?
And wanting to go back to the trough for more money,
right?
Rather than fixing the problems internally, which they refuse to do.
Right. And some of that, the COVID money was supposed to assist schools with new ventilation systems. Remember that?
Yeah.
Don't hear anything about that, but yet we're still paying that tax for the schools to get new air conditioners.
Yeah, which continues to be a problem. Right. All right. Well, thanks again for being here.
Yes, sir.
We look forward to your input on today's current events. And again, for those of you watching, go ahead and check out votechaseharrison.com on the interwebs for more information on this gentleman right here. And please contribute in any way you can with your time, your effort, your money. We'd love to get another Republican and regain some of those seats that we've lost in recent years. But again, thanks for being here tonight. Sure. Let's jump into our first topic. Joe Manchin kills the Build Back Better bill. And again, this may be the nail in the coffin for the Biden administration's entire agenda for the next 3 years. It's unbelievable that it is that fragile, but it absolutely is. Progressives are angry. Of course, your Democrats are angry about it. He is expressing a lot of concern over inflation and the fact that we continue to spend ridiculous amounts of money and print ridiculous amounts of money. Again, it's one of those situations where we have a Democrat from West Virginia. This is, for those of you who, maybe newer to politics, it's the kind of situation where he's only a Democrat really because people just generationally have always been Democrats in West Virginia and have not switched over, but they vote Republican in many times, or in many cases. And so he really has to play the fence here as a Democrat, because, again, it's a predominantly a red state, I believe.
Yes.
And he's one of the few Democrats in federal office. And so this is one of those issues that I think he knows that back home he's going to get skewered for. And again, it's one of those where generationally, families, individuals have been registered Democrats now for generations, but they are more Republican leaning in their views and their voting. And he's one of the exceptions in this case. And so smartly so. But the other thing is, guys, is I'm hearing that he's kind of become the boogeyman in this. And Democrats are starting to push back. They're starting to nasty stuff about back off. But there's 60 other senators, 50 something other senators that are also not signing on to this Build Back Better bill. I mean, it goes to show you how awful a piece of legislation this really is, right?
I love it. I absolutely.
I was like, hello.
I absolutely love it. I think what has truly happened is that they thought that once they won the presidency and they took back both chambers, that they had a mandate in the government basically to push something huge, something FDR, something that could be ground changing. And as time progressed, and you know what happens when big bills like this take forever, things start getting axed.
Yep.
And every big thing that AOC and the squad and other people and progressives wanted kept on getting taken out. And then by the time I think October came around, they completely separated the Build Back Better with the infrastructure bill, which I thought was the smartest negotiating tactic ever. Again, these are people that have been in the Senate and government for decades. And you're going to have a bartender that happened to win an election in New York try to be able to finagle her way through a bill process.
Well, and this is where experience in Congress really kind of shows, how far it gets you. Because the more experienced senators, your blue dogs, as they used to call them, your moderate Democrats, as some of us call them, or your corporate Democrats, as progressives like to call them, certainly, flex their muscles on this. And we saw them actually put up a good fight, as you said, Anibal, to separate the two bills. They get all their goodies, and they get all the corporate bucks and all the money back to their districts, and now progressives are left out in the wing.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I don't think it could have. We had been talking about this for a while, that we knew the infrastructure bill was probably going to pass because a lot of businesses and larger corporations kind of wanted this to be seen. And so now, Joe Manchin was one of the first ones, Sinema from Arizona. I think there's another one from like Pennsylvania. I think there's 2 or 3 other Democrats that are pretty, how would you say them? They call them blue dog Democrats.
Moderates.
Yeah, then that's what they are. They're moderate. Same thing we have. And honestly, we have rhinos, and again, it is what it is, but we have rhinos that are more Democrat than Republican, but they've been voting as Republicans their entire lives. They're going to do the same thing. Who could remember when we had moderates in the Senate? And so, and now the Democrats have done it to themselves, that they're down to like 3 moderates. And when you have a 50-50 Senate, you need every single person here. And Joe said that he wasn't going to go along to get along because he doesn't need to. He can be he has more people voting for him in his district, in his state, which Sinema has the same thing. She has a higher approval rating now than ever before. So her constituents want her to vote against the bill. Others want them to vote against the bill. I think Schumer is going to force them to have a vote in the Senate, and just to see who votes for what. I bet you more Democrats vote against the bill than for it.
Well, and, someone on the squad actually referred to this as Manchin's holding democracy. It's holding it at bay. It's like, it sounds to me like it's working.
Right.
It depends on what side of the coin you're on. Right.
Yeah. Well, and I say this all the time here on the show, which is the process is very deliberate. Right. It's meant that way. It was, again, the brilliance of the founding fathers to make sure that they don't rush anything through the process.
Everything's slow motion, where you can think about it and process it.
Exactly. So what I love about it in this instance is that a bill like this, it goes 2 ways. It either ages like fine wine and cheese, or it goes south and just stinks to high heck, and before you know it, nobody wants anything to do with it. And that's kind of where we're at now. I think the Manchin is kind of again, being one of these senior senators in that chamber, obviously is getting the most fire for it, the most flack. But there's 50-something other senators right behind him who are also not going to get behind this bill.
Right. And you talked about the blue dog Democrats. I mean, West Virginia, I mean, it's coal miners and unions.
Correct.
Which you think would be a strong Democratic hold. But in reality, Trump carried that by far.
Yeah.
So
well, again, West Virginia is not a blue state, and he's
only
the
on paper, I guess.
and he's the exception. It's kind of like, well, us having had Bill Nelson, and even though Florida had been a mostly Republican state for a long time, it was only a matter of time. He was getting reelected simply because he was an incumbent, and because people love to reelect their incumbents, and then there was the whole astronaut thing and all. There was people had a soft spot for him. And as soon as that gate opened, I mean, especially once then Governor Scott got into the race, we knew we were going to win that seat.
And I think that, and not to divert a little bit of the topic, but having a governor go after an incumbent Democrat in a seat like that is probably the only way you can unseat someone that was infamous and that famous in that position. Right. I mean, I when I was in school, Bill Nelson was our senator. So like we've had him for a long time. I think I know people that voted for him that were Republicans because he was somewhat of a blue dog Democrat, and he was loved within Florida. So I get that completely. But in today's situation, and to see them try to pass a $2 trillion bill after passing a $1.5 trillion deal and the $5 trillion before then was absolutely ridiculous. I mean, we've had so much money printed in the last 24 months. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. And they came up with that big number for infrastructure, but yet they've not taken a single bid on a single bridge to be repaired.
Right.
So where do you come up with these numbers?
No, and again, I mean, we've seen it time after time at every level of government. They put these numbers out there, and then it ends up going 2-3 times over budget. California is notorious for it. They had the boondoggle with this high-speed train that, again, they basically just gave up, and they started. Even the federal government said, "Enough's enough. We're not going to give you any more money for this.
You can't do it anymore."
Well, even Tampa International is getting $21 million of this. They announced it the other day. It's like, what are they getting? What do they need it for? I mean, our airport seems to be effectively run.
In all fairness, even back when I was at Senator Rubio's office, I mean, they've been asking. Joe Lapana is an amazing CEO. He's been doing an incredible job with Tampa International, but they have been saying for some time that they do need a new air traffic control tower. The current one is outdated. It's too. Given now the scope, the size, and the number of flights that we're getting here in Tampa Bay, they need a taller tower and they need a more modern tower.
Also, it's very tangible a thing when it comes to like an airport.
Exactly.
Or like ports.
Right.
So that's why I could fathom and understand the idea of spending money on infrastructure, even though we all know it takes decades for that money to go through, and the majority of that money is going to get wasted on surveys and environmental things and blah blah blah.
Well, and in the airport in particular is one of those infrastructure parts of our infrastructure that people don't realize. They think it makes a lot of money, and airports really don't make a lot of money, which is why they built this new corporate business center out there to lease a lot of the office space. They're constantly bringing in like new restaurants, and they're bringing in their new amenities and things like that, because the bulk of their money is not coming from the airlines. It's actually coming from all the other things that are generating revenue for them.
And our airport has been able, and again, we're kind of deviating a little bit, but I love talking about our city. I love talking about our airport, because again, if they need a few more $1 million, so then it goes from me taking 100 steps to get to my gate to me taking 50 steps to get to my gate. I mean, the way they built out that airport is phenomenal. And again, I don't want to talk any more about this, but I love it.
Yeah, but this is where, like, for example, I think Ron DeSantis, again, to his credit, really showed the power of the state government, because when COVID hit, he said, okay, since people are going to be locked down and traffic's going to be at a minimum, let's expedite all these road projects. And they did. And they got a lot of them done in record time, and which, again, saved saves taxpayers money, and also once things got back to normal, alleviated a lot of problems right out of the gate. So kudos to him for, again, kind of seeing the opportunity in the darkness, right? Seeing the light in the darkness, and realizing, hey, let's take this as an opportunity to get these projects done, so that when everything gets back to normal, we're not bothering the average commute.
But again, we are in a bubble when it comes to Florida and how we are protected by the governor. So we have to deal with the nonsense that's happening around the country. But when it came to this particular bill, it was basically a lie. A lot of it was a lie.
Yeah.
A lot of it was finagling with the numbers and pretending, basically playing shadows with it, because a lot of the programs that they wanted, they only funded for a year. Literally, they funded for a year or for one cycle,
right?
Which means you're gonna.
No,
you're lying.
The state or the county's on the hook for the rest of it, and we see this time and time again. The federal government does this all the time.
Oh yeah,
and it's a horrible way to try to push forward an agenda, because we saw it with the Bill Gates grant here in the school with the school system. We've seen it with other projects where the federal government will give the municipality or the local government a grant. And then once that money runs out, they're responsible for finding it to keep the thing going. And so, again, not a smart way to fund projects.
Yet to the most educated people in our community that couldn't see the detriment of allowing for a non-fundable program to be funded and just taken away for the teachers, which upset the teachers more than anything else, because a lot of the programs were working. But again, you have an unfunded mandate, and now you're yelling at people.
Well, it's like Governor Scott, right before he left office, gave T-BARTA about, I think it was $2 million, maybe, or somewhere between 2 and 5, and they decided to use it to make the streetcar, which again I like, but it's a tourist attraction, and they used it to make it for free, right? So now the expectation is that, hey, there's a school streetcar that's free. Yeah. Well, what happens when the money runs out? Now they're going to be crying poor, right. Crying poverty, and they're going to want money to keep it free, because they think that it's, again, that the numbers are going to die off. The numbers are going to dwindle, which they will, because if it were a valuable service, people would pay for it. But if it's not, people aren't going to pay for it. Right.
Amtrak is a perfect example. But again, the things that were inside the bill were horrible. Yeah. Daycare, the free childcare, you couldn't do that for religious organizations. So right there was a hiccup. Yeah. They were not even going to give it to the parents. They were going to give it to the states, so then they can give it to the parents. So I think there was just a bunch of lies and a bunch of things. And again, you're right. If a bill that size works well, then it will ripe as fine wine. But this just stunk to high heaven. Yeah. And the Democrats at the end were like, we'll just pass it so that we can say we did something. And now you can't. And so one gentleman, one senator, which is probably the best example of democracy to be put on, has completely tanked the president's agenda. And I love it. As a Republican, I love it. I get it.
Right.
We would do someone would probably do the same thing for us.
Well,
honestly.
It goes to show you how the media has to frame this for people to understand what's happening. Because again, it's not just Manchin. Obviously, is he leading the way? Is he the most vocal one? Yeah, absolutely.
He can take. I almost feel like he can take the beating. Yeah. Because what are you going to do?
Well, and he's known Joe Biden for how many decades now? Probably for
Four, probably. Yeah.
And actually one of the podcasts that we always kind of refer to, that Anibal and I love listening to, Crystal and Sager with Breaking Points, made a great point that the president had to call Manchin to try to get him to flip on this vote, and he wouldn't. Right. And the fact that I think Manchin didn't even take his call or something like that. Like he
wouldn't take his calls, right. And he only let the White House know 30 minutes before the Fox interview his decision to flip. So, and it wasn't even him that called. It was an assistant that called the White House.
So it shows you that this president has no power in this Congress. He has no clout. He has no political weight. And I think they know this, especially going into a midterms where they're going to be vulnerable anyways. Right. The last thing they want is Joe Biden showing up to support their campaign.
Well, they're already calling for him to announce he's not going to run again.
Sure, yeah.
And so he's going to have 3 years of a lame duck. And once they do that,
that's why they're putting out these feelers, right? As to, if he doesn't run, who does, right? Because I think it's all it's all smoke signals, to him that, hey, we thanks, but no thanks. Right. All right, let's jump into a similar or a related topic in talking about the Senate. As the news came out a couple weeks ago about the one and only Dr. Oz. And no, we're not talking about the Wizard of Oz. We're talking about the doctor, the celebrity doctor from television, created by none other than Oprah, who has not only come out as a Republican as of late, but he has also come out as a senatorial candidate. Now, of course, as you might imagine, Hollywood, where he is very beloved, has not taken to this very well. And so, what amuses me is that you see the machine after a while. If you follow enough of these campaigns, it's almost predictable, how they're going to kind of handle the spin and how they're going to handle this. And of course, it's, they're saying how, like The View, for instance, is saying that he's changed. He's not the same person he was.
Didn't they say that about Trump too, since he had been a reality star and
sure,
they loved him?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
It's like,
so it's the same playbook.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like, he must be, something must have happened, because, all of a sudden he's a Republican, and that's not the guy we know. That's not the guy we liked all these years. Again, someone who's become a millionaire and a celebrity doctor.
As an immigrant.
Yeah,
His
right.
parents immigrated here.
Right. And that's what they fear most, right? Is that he's going to have the celebrity, he's going to have the name ID, he's going to have the money to really make a great run, at this. Now, I haven't seen any polls yet, but again, when you're running with someone he's no Trump in the sense that he's not going to have the controversies to follow him, because Trump was a very polarizing figure before he got into politics. Right. Even back then, you either liked him or you didn't. Of course, once he became a Republican, they started kind of digging around, for all the dirt, and I'm sure they'll probably do the same for Dr. Oz and see what kind of dirt they can dig up on him. I would not be surprised if all of a sudden you started to see maybe accusations of a bad workplace environment, that maybe he treated people wrong or yelled at people and that sort of thing, because that's the sort of thing that starts to come out, because it's easy to find, 2 or 3 people, among the hundreds, if not thousands of people that have worked for him to come out and say those kind of things. I don't know. I mean, some people are saying that, is he really a Republican, or is he just trying to capitalize on the momentum that we're seeing going into the midterms, so is he really a Democrat, in sheep's clothing, or is he, being real here? And is he genuinely running as a Republican and going to, follow most, if not all of the Republican platform as he makes his way to Congress?
Well, I watched the interview you had with Hannity earlier today, actually. Mm-hmm. And I believe it's from the heart. As an immigrant who has now succeeded, and he actually loves the idea of freedom, unlike a lot of the Democrats that are in the offices now. They want to fundamentally change the way we live.
Yeah.
I think in his case, it's actually true that he loves the nation, he loves the freedom, the liberty, and the ability for someone to exceed in life.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, Anibal.
So what I was going to say is that, they've been starting to conduct polling, and right now he's a 10-point lead among Republicans seeking the Pennsylvania seat. So
right.
He's already up there. Yeah. His show, Dr. Oz, officially goes off air halfway through January, because I don't think you can run for the Senate and be on a national televised Emmy winning. I had no idea he won an Emmy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that 9 o'clock slot, evidently, or 9 o'clock or 11 o'clock slot is widely contested around the country.
I think it's 11, yeah.
Yeah, so he is making a huge decision to lose a lot of money and be able to transition into that position.
Well, because I would think, let's say it doesn't go his way. Let's say something happens, he ends up not being able to make it to the Senate. It's a lot of it's going to be incredibly difficult for him to put that genie back in the bottle, right. And not have politics now kind of seep its way into what he was doing on television. That being said, again, I don't think anybody who's ever watched him, whether it was his show or when he would go on Oprah and that sort of thing, ever got any kind of an idea of where he kind of stood politically.
He was medical.
Which I thought was pretty brilliant.
You don't want your medical person to be spewing politics while
You probably shouldn't know what party you're doctor is in.
I mean,
right.
I mean, if you're getting a prostate exam, you have no desire to know what the political ramifications are with that. That's a very tricky conversation to have. I will say this: he's already seen the wrath of the media because they're no longer calling him doctor. They're just saying. They're not using his title, and so people are getting upset at that. Again, to now have him running for the Senate, I think it'll be the midterms. It'll be interesting to see how close he goes with Trump.
But no, Jill Biden is still Dr. Jill Biden.
Right.
I mean, heaven forbid that you not call Dr. Jill Biden,
Right.
because then you are, you're an anti-feminist. You're a misogynist. You're a hateful person if you don't call Jill Biden Dr. Jill Biden.
Again, I think it's a lot of. It'll be very interesting because he's picking up a lot of endorsements in Pennsylvania, and again, this looks really good for 2024 in regards to you have a senator a Republican senator in the state of Pennsylvania. Well, so now you have the matrix to see if that can work for it.
Well, what I see Democrats fearing most, especially in the middle of a pandemic, is actually someone who understands and knows the medical science,
right,
and can speak on it professionally, and can go to Congress and not only speak on how we should be handling this pandemic, but also how do we handle things like Obamacare? How do we handle things like providing insurance, for more Americans, and the different problems that are happening in our medical system?
How did that work out for Rand Paul?
So, yeah. Well, and that's the thing, they try to discredit him.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
well, he was,
They went after
what is he,
him,
an ophthalmologist, or he's, or they've tried everything.
Eyes.
Yeah,
Or
they've
Ben
tried everything
Carson,
under the books. Right, to Ben Carson.
Right. And they go after him, right.
I mean, we're talking Ben Carson specifically, one of the most brilliant, respected surgeons maybe in history.
Right.
Is in history books for some of the works that he's done. And they've reduced him to a cartoon character.
Oh, yeah, because he's a black Republican.
Yeah.
The bigotry that comes out of the progressive left because someone is not fitting the motif that you expect when it comes to that. So like a Hispanic or a black African American or a black American, if they even speak the words, and we'll talk about this later when it comes to Charlemagne the God, the moment you get called a Republican as a minority, it's almost like a Charlotte letter. And it's so disgusting to see how bad it is. And this new generation is really starting to push back on that, which I'm very happy for. Because I remember there are large parts of the country that are minorities and they're Republican. And you'd be surprised how many of these people are starting to show up and vote.
Well, again, as his campaign continues, it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how he responds, because they're going to grill him about coronavirus,
right?
Especially right now that we're seeing a surge in Omicron, cases. New York is already in a panic.
Did you hear what happened today? So to get a COVID rapid test, people were waiting up to 2 hours in Harlem in the rain to get a test. And it's supposed to take a few hours to get the result. It's taking 60 hours to get the result. This is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The wife and I, like a week ago, we went to a center here in Tampa to get a test, and we got the response in less than an hour.
Wow.
And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on?
Yeah.
They had more money than God, honestly, to get things done. And
two ships.
And 2 ships. And you're telling me that in New York City, and now it's just embarrassing. This is annoying. Don't get me wrong. I can't stand that states like government, politics, and everything else, but it's New York City. You have everyone knows New York, and for some odd reason Miami and Disneyland. Yeah. So it's annoying to see that. And again, I'm gonna, as a Floridian, I don't even know if I want to travel to New York in the next few months, which I was planning to, because not to say I'm afraid of getting the virus, I'm afraid of dealing with the bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
That you have to deal with.
They literally arrested, I think, 4 people in New York City, a video and all. I mean, in plain sight, they arrested 4 people for eating unvaccinated at an Applebee's.
Oh,
So when you're waiting in line in the cold and the rain, if you don't have COVID, you at least have the flu.
Yeah, literally, they literally brought the paddy wagon and handcuffed them and for having dinner unvaccinated.
What is wrong with people?
Did they let them finish eating?
I hope so, because that jail food is not
It's Applebee's. Do they have a different Applebee's than we do?
Yeah, well, and again, now they're expecting kids, 5 to 11, to be vaccinated. Even though we're starting to see more and more cases come out about cardiac complications, among
As you
children
get younger,
after the vaccine, and so it's going to only push. We were talking about this last night with a friend of mine, that it's only going to push more and more people out of these blue states into the red states, because they are not going to tolerate this level of, for years, right? They called Trump the fascist. Right. Now we see who the true fascists are.
Oh, completely.
Oh, they're all about inclusion until you disagree with them.
That's right.
And now they shun you, they cancel you.
Well, and the juxtaposition, or that New York is in, is that these commercial real estate industry is in a panic, because these companies are
leaving.
They're leaving, or they're pushing more of their employees remote. Right. They're not renewing leases, and so they're trying to send people back to work, while at the same time implementing more mandates, and lockdowns at the same time. It makes no sense. There's no logic to anything that they're doing right now in New York City.
Just like the healthcare workers recently, that if you don't get the shot now, you lose your job. Yeah. It's like, weren't we just holding them up in praise not even a year ago for being the frontline defense?
Right. And yet they just fired a whole ton of them.
So they actually wrote it in that if you get fired because of that, you're not entitled to any unemployment benefits.
Yeah, that got challenged into the. Again, it's so disgusting how much they talk about peace, they talk about unification, they talk about all tyranny. This, and they are literally. They're literally terrorists when it comes to democracy.
Polk County just had a swearing-in ceremony for police officers from New York City into the Polk County Police Sheriff's Office.
It's going to get worse. It's the way, because this is what happens. Democrats are finding themselves in a position that they don't know how to get out of.
Right.
So what do? You double down. You double down. You let Fauci get up there and say, "Oh, we might have to wear masks on planes for the rest of our lives." Are you serious? After there's a Senate hearing with engineers and the airplane industry, and talking about the air that's in the planes is cleaner than ever before.
Oh, yeah, because it's all run through.
It's run through and
tons of filters.
It's run through like 20 times a minute or something. It's something ridiculous. And you're like, and we've done this for that reason. Yeah. And then you have senators, well, are you saying that we shouldn't be you saying we shouldn't wear masks? And the engineer's like, yes, it's cleaner than an ER. Like, what do you want us to do? Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and again, the stupidity of Democrats that just want to continue pushing because they want control. Yeah. It's like a kid that has a vest that's a hall monitor and has taken above and beyond when it comes to their authority.
Well, because they want to say that, hey, we did something.
Yes.
At least we tried.
Right. Yeah, exactly. At least we tried.
Yeah, 20 months overdue.
And as far as the masks, what I really never understood, remember when they came out they were offering diagrams of how to make a mask? Yeah. But there was no standard what to make it out of.
Oh, right.
It could have been a pillowcase or it could have been a Glad bag.
Yeah.
But there was just no standard involved.
Right.
If you had one of the little hospital ones, I get
people crocheting masks.
Right.
And it's like,
so
just,
bringing up this topic, someone was removed from either a Southwest or Delta Air flight because he was wearing a red thong as a mask. And technically it met the standards of what a mask is required to in the airplane.
Sure.
But yet he was still removed because it was inappropriate.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. This is The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in Florida politics. Jonny Torres here with Anibal, David Cabrera, and our guest tonight, Chase Harrison, candidate for District 7 here in Hillsborough County for the Board of County Commissioners. We're having a great conversation so far after our first two topics. Don't forget to check out Chase Harrison's website at votechaseharrison.com and help in any way you can to get Hillsborough County back in the right direction. Possibly my favorite viral moment that came out of this week, it has got to be what happened with Kamala Harris and Charlemagne the God.
Absolutely.
Before we get on the topic, though, I do want to remind you, while you got a second, go ahead and subscribe to the audio version of our podcast. You can do that very easily at any of the tech overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and now the Samsung podcast platform. So we appreciate you for doing so, getting great numbers on the audio version of our podcast, because you can take it with you anywhere you go. But Kamala Harris not only gets cornered, but then she gets embarrassed by Charlemagne the God. And again, he's somebody if you're not familiar with him, just search him on YouTube. Because
Phenomenal
he is
interviewer.
not he's just not intimidated by anyone.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care.
Yeah, he literally is going to ask you the very question that you don't want him to ask you. And I didn't even know until just before this happened. I didn't even know that he had been given a show on Comedy Central, which now I got to start watching because he's starting to make a lot of news. And Comedy Central, of course, had Jon Stewart for so long that, he was making every news every week, based on the things that he was saying politically,
right.
And now we're starting to finally see that come out of this program because The Daily Show is just a waste of time these days.
So the show is called THA, The God's Honest Truth,
right?
With Charlemagne the
there
God.
We go.
And so I think it's a great play on words, and the whole motif is pretty interesting. I was able to see a few episodes. I am shocked, I tell you, that that her team allowed her to be on an interview situation like this after the show on the View with like them figuring out half the group has COVID, blah blah, like what
but they should have known. This is the same guy. This is the same guy
last time, remember?
Well, this was the same guy that asked Elizabeth Warren about her Native American ancestry. He really is not afraid to, he doesn't care about politics in that sense. Like,
he's not Comedy Central. They shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but he's not. He's not. Loyal to any particular party. He wants to get to the questions that people actually have.
Right.
And so, if you haven't seen the video yet, he basically corners her and says, "Who's running this country?"
Right. Which Joe?
Yeah, which Joe's running this country? Joe Manchin or Joe Biden? And
do we have the video of this that's available? Okay.
All right. We're gonna try to.
Let's see if we can do this.
See if we can run this. Trying something a little new here. Here we go. Do we need?
Okay, to give.
Oh, here we go.
Trying to fake technical issue. She fakes things.
Yeah, well, as far as right here in the beginning, and I think we'll hit kind of play on this video here in a second, is that they tried to stop the interview.
Oh,
because they knew that this was not going to end well.
No,
and her press assistant, because her press secretary actually quit.
That's right.
She's about to quit.
Or
she gave her 2 weeks notice.
Oh, okay, got it.
And she's
there we
now
go.
in
All right,
charge
it's
of the
running.
border.
Do you have the audio, Lindsay? Because we can't. If you can hear it, it's fine. Okay. So just let us know when we can
stop mansplaining. Oh, you have to watch the hands. It's phenomenal.
Oh, look at her looking for help off to the side.
She can hear me. I'm saying that there's no sound. Well, you can read it.
Yeah. And so in this.
Oh, here it is. Watch it. No. No. You listen to me. No.
At least she wasn't. At least she wasn't cackling.
Right.
The one time that she does is
shocked.
It was bad. It was so bad.
At least on Comedy Central would have been acceptable.
That's right. Yeah, it might have been appropriate. Yeah.
Well, what cracked me up was her first defense
force of some kind.
Well, and to what you were saying earlier, Anibal, is that she to her the biggest the hardest insult she could throw at him in that moment without being undiplomatic was that don't sound like a Republican.
I was heated.
Yeah. Which honestly, I think anybody who knows, anybody who listens to him on any of his shows and all the projects he's done, they know he's far from being a Republican.
Right.
Yeah.
But he wants the truth.
Yeah.
That's what it comes
but it's that sort of thing that I think, 4 years ago, even, 8 years ago, definitely, I think that would have hit a lot harder.
Yeah.
And I think that when she threw that out there like that, and the fact that he didn't even flinch, he didn't even, he didn't even acknowledge it.
Right.
I think that it again, we're seeing the numbers. We're seeing the numbers turn in the Hispanic community. We're seeing the numbers turn in the Black community and other minority groups, towards the Republican Party. And I think the more you kind of use that against people that have a differing thought or opinion, I think the more they're going to be like, well, maybe I should check this out. Maybe I should check and see what this other group is about. Right. Because they've been lied to. And again, if you don't fall in line, they're going to call you out, and they're going to, or they'll disassociate from you, if you don't fall in line. And he is the wrong person to do that with.
I think that people forget. So like we do this podcast once a week, and so we are able to talk. We can form conversations and we can pull it out. With him, he's been doing the Breakfast Club since 2010, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
This man, they know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And for him to, it literally said, because they're trying to pull her off, saying that.
And a radio morning show
which
is very different from a TV show. Right, exactly. It's unscripted. It is, I mean, you're literally building the plane as it's flying. As I say to the Air Force veteran. Again, he was the wrong person for her to snap back like that.
And he's had her on the Breakfast Club before, and they've had a little bit of a spat before.
Yeah.
So, and her, again, the fact that she did not cackle means that either she was trying to be tough on purpose, which just makes her look weak, or she was really shocked about what she couldn't get pulled out of the interview.
Well, she got super defensive.
She got very defensive.
And again, being defensive, I mean, obviously, just never looks good, no matter who's doing it.
I am the vice president. Joe Biden is the president.
Yeah,
I'm like, yes, we get it. You could have easily just like spun it and said, oh, okay, we understand what you're saying, but.
Well, what's crazy is that, in the underground, in the kind of the just beneath your mainstream kind of talent, you have progressives and Democrats out there that call Joe Biden Jim Crow Joe.
Oh, absolutely.
Like they fully acknowledge his past. And
like the crime bill when Bill Clinton was the president. He was the one that pressed it.
And and again, the people in the Black community have not forgotten about that.
Kamala has thrown more black men into prison in California than probably anyone else.
Over marijuana. Right?
Exactly. I mean, these are the things that people that you start talking to Democrats about, especially on campuses when they do that whole like, well, would you recommend this? And they're like, oh yeah, Trump definitely said. No, your vice president did it. Yeah, Kamala. Like, really? Like, yes. You have no idea. Yeah. You're literally watching Charlemagne get red pilled immediately. He's not going to become a Republican. He's not going to become conservative. And I don't expect that from someone that grew up in New York, and I think New York or Philadelphia. But I don't expect him. But I do expect him to be honest, brutally honest. Like, look, politics is a horrible thing.
But that was the thing about Jon Stewart, right? It was like, even though you knew he was a Democrat, even though you knew he swam that way. Mm-hmm. He was always brutally honest, right? He was never afraid to really put the truth out there or to ask the hard questions of the people that came onto his show. And I think that's obviously what lacked, from his departure, and I think, Charlemagne may be the guy to bring it back. I mean, but, there are not a lot of people that have that big of a platform that he does and are willing to go down that path and be as aggressively in their interview. Look, Fox News doesn't even get that aggressive with their questioning, because even when the Democrats go onto Fox News, they know what questions they're going to get. They know what's going to be asked of them, and there are boundaries that they stay within still.
And they know their audience is already on their side anyway.
Yeah.
Where he has the opportunity to venture on the other side like that.
And I wonder if maybe either that question was not pre-approved, because oftentimes when there, once you start interviewing, people in Congress, senators, and up, you have to provide these questions in advance. Sure. Especially if you don't have the clout of a major news network. Right. And so I'm wondering if he curveballed them with this one.
His office probably gave her office 10 questions that he might ask, and probably didn't ask one of them. And that's because, again, he's been doing radio, and a lot of people have watched his stuff. Yeah. That it's off the cuff. It's what people want to know. It's what the community, the community, the culture wants to know.
Yeah.
No matter how much you like or dislike him, he has the pulse of the culture.
Right.
If you're on radio for 4 hours a day, you know what's going on in the world,
Yeah.
and especially with the hip hop community and the Black African American community, and to see him jab that way and for her to respond that way,
Right.
it looks horrible. And again, this just proves even more of a point that she probably is really feeling the pressure of either doing something or defending the White House.
But at this point, if you're working in the White House, especially in the communications department, how do you not take these two and basically just lock them in a bunker? Because, and I'm sure they would love to do that. Obviously,
Just like where he
they
ran
can.
from.
Yeah, exactly. The way he ran his campaign, because it just seems like every time that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris get on TV or radio, that it's just blunder city.
Right.
You just know it's not going to end well, regardless of the outlet.
Especially when he makes statements of, they don't want me to answer any questions. It's like, who is that?
I mean, he acts like he's under, under
Duress.
sequestration, under
I
duress.
still love end of speech. Like
End of message.
the last part of it.
End of message.
Yeah, the end.
All right. But I can't wait to keep watching that. And that is going to come back to haunt her for sure in when it comes time to 2024.
Real quick, I saw it. I knew it was coming. That's why I said more of it, producer. So evidently, Hillary Clinton is really thinking about jumping into the 2024 race, which I think is phenomenal.
Well, hold on.
You saw
But remember, hold on, because if you remember,
there's more.
Yeah, Charlemagne the God was the one who asked. No, I'm sorry, it wasn't Charlemagne the God. It was the Breakfast Club.
It was the Breakfast
which
Club.
he was on. But it was on that show that they asked her, "Is like, oh, what do you have in your bag?"
Oh,
and she goes, she claimed that she carried hot sauce in her
was
bag.
it her or was
which
it
at that? No, it was a girl, one of the other co-hosts, because there's like 4 or 5 people on that show. But it was on that show on the Breakfast Club where they asked her, so what do you carry with you? What's in your bag? And she goes, oh, I got hot sauce in my bag, which was at the time it was like a popular saying,
right.
But that again, like unless she was coached, she would never know to say that.
Yeah, she's not in that time frame,
right? And so of course, right out of the gate, they knew she was coached, and it was a completely absurd answer.
Or she knew
coming
that they were
from
going to
her.
ask that question.
Yeah, of course, it was totally set up, and she looked. I mean, it was kind of like her Dukakis moment, right? Riding around on the
With
tank.
that
I roll with hot sauce. That's what she said.
Yeah, right. Hillary Clinton, really.
Mike, we all know that all the medication that she's on, she cannot deal with that indigestion.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching The Yard Sign. Anibal David Cabrera, Chase Harrison joining us, candidate for District 7 here in Hillsborough County for the Board of County Commissioners. We are having a lot of fun with tonight's topics. Again, we'll be postponing. We'll be on vacation next week, celebrating the holidays. Again, we'll be kind of on the tail end of Christmas and looking forward to the new year. And so come 2022.
Don't say it. Don't
sounds
say
so
it.
weird. It still seems like the future to me.
Too
like
soon.
it doesn't.
Well, it is the future.
It just doesn't seem like we live. It's weird to me that we live in 2022.
I'm gonna send you there was a list of the 50 things, or like 50 things, or no, 10 things that we did not do less than 50 years ago. And it's like, just thinking about that, like, oh my God, like you really think about it, and like, wow. And now I can understand where like our grandparents, and during your time, saw the transition.
Wow.
Oh, I had
You
to.
hope you look this good at my age.
That's right.
The transition from steam engines to like jets, and that kind of dramaticness.
Sure.
And now you're like, well, 50 years ago, people had to get milk delivered to their houses.
Yeah.
And now I can get anything from Amazon, and probably the next few years, a drone will send it to me.
Oh yeah.
So it's that craziness of how quickly things are moving.
No,
I apologize. Jeez.
Oh, no, you're fine.
No, it's unbelievable that, again, I mean, especially with this device that we carry around with us, just think about how much our mobile phones can do. Yeah. And it's absolutely remarkable that we live in an era where that's possible, and especially me, I was a Dick Tracy fan, so I love the fact that, I can now call people on my watch, and that's something I never thought would actually come to fruition. Right. And yet here we are. Let's go ahead and get into tonight's final topic, which is a fun one. And again, I'm a huge Elon Musk fan. Still, though, very unhappily waiting for my Cybertruck. As we've been told, it's probably going to be another 2 years before we actually see them. But the upside is that they're going to be coming out of the Gigafactory in Austin, Texas, which I'm really excited about. It might actually be the only reason that I would actually go to Texas, without a paycheck attached to it.
You don't like Texas?
I mean, I went for work. I mean, but it's like, what draws someone to Texas?
No state income tax.
I mean, San Antonio. No, but I mean,
we have that here.
But I mean, like tourism wise, like I've heard San Antonio's nice.
I hear Austin is nice. There's a river running through the city.
I've been to Austin.
It's all right.
It's okay.
It's all right.
I mean, it's a lot of food trucks. They were early on the food truck thing.
It's all right. Like that's exactly. So like we're in Florida. We have the beaches. We have Disney World. Like what else do we want? I don't know what else.
Well, and like everything's brown in Texas.
Everything's bigger in Texas. Okay, I'll go to the Denny's. I don't understand what you want me to do.
Yeah. But
I don't. Cowboy hats don't look good on me. So like right there, it's.
Speak for yourself.
Well, also everyone.
You also wear scarves, so I don't think those two would go together.
I don't. I'll have that conversation. Also, in Texas, I would assume I'll get kidnapped by like a cartel and be working for like a mine. I have no idea. It's Texas. Everything happens in Texas.
Now, look, I worked in Fort Worth for about a year, and I loved it. It was beautiful. Almost moved there, but didn't. And I mean, again, nothing really was like, man, now. Colorado, on the other hand, is a gorgeous state. I would, that's definitely a place that I would love to go to. Oregon is beautiful. I mean, but that's what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing.
Texas has everything when it comes to landscaping. You have deserts and forests and the Gulf of Mexico.
See, I only saw the brown parts.
I don't want a desert.
I only saw the brown parts.
I'm just saying something for everybody.
Cows. Okay, you have cows. We have palm trees.
Cows and land.
I don't understand what else.
We have cows here.
Not to the number of those in Texas. You know where I want to go to? Yellowstone. And the only reason why is because of the TV show.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, you and everybody else.
I'm loving it. I don't know why.
Speaking of which, I'm going to be going to Georgia here after Christmas, and I'm going to try to stop by the set of The Walking Dead.
So Lauren and I only go to one place in Georgia, and that's Jekyll Island. So,
excuse me.
It's a thing.
Okay, I'll take your word for it. So Elon Musk, as always, loves being on Twitter and loves trolling those who don't fall in line with his view and for the future and for the world and for his company and whatnot. I mean, he's certainly not one to hold back, as seems to be the theme in tonight's show between Manchin, Charlemagne the God, Doctor. I think there's a thread there that we're just figuring out, but. Elon Musk pushing back on Elizabeth Warren, and even, subliminally on AOC and some of these other progressives who have been calling him out publicly for not paying his fair share in taxes. He recently put out that, first of all, let's take a look at what's on the screen, which is the original tweet. Elizabeth Warren says, let's change the rig tax code. The person of the year will actually pay taxes and stop... so the person of the year will actually pay taxes and stop freeloading off of everyone else. This is
that's a pretty bold statement.
This is the hand
bold statement.
This is the hand that was feeding you now coming back to bite you because, Tesla is what it is. It was heavily subsidized initially. Right. Now that has paid off in dividends, right? Because he has pushed not only an entire new industry, but he has disrupted, manufacturing and restarted manufacturing in the United States, which is something that we had also lost quite a bit of. But then you also talk about what he's doing with battery technology, what he's doing with rockets, with SpaceX. I mean, it's unbelievable. So in that situation, I would say money well spent, right? Because what he's probably saved NASA in terms of money has probably been multiple times over whatever he got in federal funding at the start of Tesla.
So evidently something leaked about what he will be paying. He will be paying $11 billion in taxes.
Which is more than anyone on the planet.
Yeah.
Ever.
Right. You know, and
It's
that's
still not enough to satisfy.
But it goes
her.
back.
It will never be enough to satisfy that
It goes back to again.
Talk to her husband.
It goes back to the kind of narrative that Republicans have kind of been going by all the time. Is that again the top 1%, top 10%, the top 10% pay 90% of the taxes in this country. Perfect example. Yeah, are there loopholes that we should close and maybe and really revise? I mean, we should take the tax code and just honestly just throw it out the window.
Whoa!
I'm a flat taxer. I am.
Whoa.
I'm a flat taxer.
Like a flat earther.
No, it's not the same thing.
Definitely not the same thing, and much more realistic. But
I have no comment when it comes to our tax policies and our tax infrastructure. And you guys can do whatever you want, the IRS. Please don't.
I'd abolish it. That's what I'd do.
Whoa.
Yeah.
No, I wouldn't.
I always love when the presidential primaries come around and they all want to abolish the IRS. It's such a sweet talking
Except the
point.
guy that's there now, he wants to hire 190,000 more.
Oh,
of them,
yeah.
right?
I mean, he's basically
of
building an
course.
army. He's building the IRS into an army.
The $600
Yeah.
limit. Yeah.
So from the tweet that was just on the screen, the response, a little bit after that was that, he is going to be paying, I think at the beginning of the year, he is going to be paying about $11 billion in taxes, which the Democrats, sure, are just frothing at the mouth to spend, which actually it's already been spent. I mean, who are we kidding?
It's horrible. I think what they're doing, trying to villainize him again. And so I watched one of the shows today, and they were like, they did the pro and cons and everything else, and they're talking about how that they don't feel that he should be focusing on space. He should be focusing on the earth. And again, whatever he does, people are going to be upset or mad. Half the internet loves him, half the internet hates him. And so there's no good point about it, but he's Times Man of the Year for being for being the richest man in the world right now, but also probably being one of the most influential and world changing when it comes to battery technology.
But as we've seen in previous years with Time Magazine's Person of the Year, it's not the most likable person.
True.
It's not, hey, who do we love this year? It's who's the most controversial or who is the most influential or who is the most, and again, I don't know of anybody that I could put up there with Elon Musk who has had more of an impact globally than he has with the cars, with SpaceX, with the technology that he's developed, and with all the other projects that he has. I mean, the Boring Company, and what he's doing there in terms of trying to create alternative, transportation solutions.
He's the definition of a Renaissance man, and he's like our not Michelangelo, but our
he's like our Thomas Edison or our Benjamin Franklin.
Inventions that
he will be one of the he will go down as one of the greatest inventors of all time. Now, people want to try to put him down there like, well, he bought Tesla. He didn't actually, invent the technology and this and that. But I mean, you have one conversation with that guy, and he knows exactly what's happening. At every level of that company. And it's not just that company. He's got something like half a dozen companies.
That's the beauty of it. He's a great manager. Besides being an inventor, he's a great manager. And again, people like him, don't like him. That he doesn't want to unionize. He forces his people to work. It is what it is.
Well, right now, think about what's happening at John Deere. Look at what's happening at Kellogg's. Okay, look at what's happening at Starbucks. They're having these huge revolts among their workforce. Amazon. And, because they're trying to unionize or improve whatever their current situation is. Guess where they're not trying to do that? At Tesla.
Correct.
Because like he said famously, the last time that they tried to corner him on his financial earnings, was that, guess what? All my employees have stock.
In the company. Right.
Mm-hmm. So
skin in the game.
Yeah.
It needs to succeed, and they will.
You have some of the highest paid people maybe in the country working on those manufacturing lines, right? Because they've probably become eventual millionaires, just based on the company stock options that they've acquired by being an employee at Tesla.
And the media keeps on attacking him for the stupidest reasons. I remember listening to he was giving an interview with a bunch of reporters, and they're attacking him for not employing more people of diversity. And he's like, look, if you're working in the industry that we're working in when it comes to rocket technology, you can't just employ anyone from the street or from any country.
Right.
It has to be Americans that are it is a huge vetting process. So it's not you can't just get people from anywhere in the world. And he's like, I can't ship this stuff around the world to be built. It has to be built here. Yeah. It cannot be built anywhere else.
Well, and that's where he's starting to cause a little bit of a problem, because he is starting to build relationships with China. He's building a factory in China. China's going to do what China's going to do, and they're going to to take half of that company, and they're going to try to take all that technology.
Oh yeah, and he knows this. He's done interviews saying that he's not ignorant in the fact of what's happening, but he's not also ignorant in the fact that he's going to sell half of his cars to China. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And again, and a lot of it's in Europe. A lot of it's a lot of that.
It's a matter of how much of your technology are you willing to relinquish. You know, how much of your IP are you willing to?
And he's okay with it. He's done a lot of open source.
Yeah.
So it's not, and he understands. It's not the fact that people don't want the technology or that he wants to keep it as himself. He'll open it. Odds are they won't be able to implement. China has done a great job taking technology and not being able to implement it.
Right.
Whatsoever. You have entire buildings falling apart in infrastructure because they decided to change the compensation of cement, and you're like, to make an extra buck for the for corruption, and everything's falling apart, and you're like, oh, China's building these beautiful cities. Yeah, that's not going to last more than 50 years.
Yeah, and technology is definitely not their strong suit. I mean, they're not the Japanese. I mean, because to their credit, the Japanese build amazing technology. And you know, and again, you know, in the 70s when they started, you know, bringing in the Japanese cars, I mean, it was just, they were better, they were smarter, they were
cheaper.
more fuel efficient, they were cheaper. Yeah.
And that's the difference between and again, we're running into economics, but that's the difference between the Japanese invasion into the U.S. and the China entering into our market is that we wanted to be better. We wanted to implement a lot of the things that the Japanese were doing when it comes to building and infrastructure and the systems. No one wants that from the Chinese. No one wants any of that. That kind of infrastructure that the Chinese are building, they can't even do the high speed correctly because it's built horribly.
I would love to see the number of money, of capital that is generated by all of his companies combined here in the United States. Because again, you're talking about Tesla, you know, and all their facilities now throughout the, you know, both California and the Southwest, because I think he's got a gigafactory in Nevada. I think it's a battery factory. He's also got the gigafactory he's building in Texas. He's got SpaceX, which also based out of California and Florida, and the billions of dollars that he is generating, you know, for this country, and the thousands of people that he's employing. And again, like, he made space relevant again.
Right.
You know,
people are upset about that,
especially the American space program. You know, and what I also admire about him is that he's not Bezos and Richard Branson, who are out there just looking to joyride out, you know, above the atmosphere, because that's really what they're doing. They're not doing anything productive.
Tourism,
Blue Origin is doing some satellite work or whatever, but it's nothing to the level of what SpaceX is doing. You don't see Elon chomping at the bit to get onto a rocket.
No.
Okay.
That was so weird because someone asked him, like, why haven't you been on space? Because he's like, I don't need to go to space.
Yeah.
I need to be running things here. I'm not focused on
I'm
that.
not an astronaut.
I mean, and that made so much sense.
Well, and again, it shows you the difference between Elon and a Bezos and a Richard Branson. Those guys are the money and the face of those companies. Elon is also the brains.
Right.
Again, he understands this technology. He understands what is being built by the people that he employs. He understands the failures and the successes of the company and the technology that it takes and the science that it takes. I mean, the guy is incredibly brilliant. And whereas, again, Bezos is just a phenomenal business guy. You know, he's a guy that just kind of figured out the formula, you know, and Richard Branson is just, he's a celebrity, like
he's a celebrity entrepreneur.
Like celebrity entrepreneur, right. I mean, it's like, okay, great. He built like a great record company and then record stores and now cruise lines. And, you know, he's just a serial entrepreneur that, you know, probably loves himself more than he loves his own companies. I mean, he loves the spotlight, you know, and so they're not even on the same playing field. I don't think I mean, I think Elon's the NFL and I think Bezos is playing college football and Branson's, you know, probably playing arena football, in my opinion.
You're being very nice in the examples. I would have thrown something a lot different as an example. I will say this. I think Elon Musk will probably be the first person that's worth over $1 trillion. And the reason why I think that is because his industries that he's moving, transportation, energy, and soon mining, because you're in space. If an asteroid just happens to pass by, you're grabbing that sucker and you're moving it to like low orbit on the moon and then just figuring out mining. And these are the things that people need to start understanding, that this is the world we're moving into, because Earth is already, I mean, you can say it's overpopulated and whatever, the population is actually decreasing by 2050. But our next step is that the American, and I hate when people say we shouldn't go to space because, oh, we're wasting money, we should be doing things here. That's probably what people said when we were trying to send ships over to go to the New World.
Right.
Or when the colonies started moving west.
Oh, yeah.
It is our destiny as Americans to shoot to the stars.
Well,
and
not
if that's
only
going to
that,
be it, that's going to be it.
The research that's being done in space and that eventually will hopefully, happen on the moon and beyond. I mean, all that research and knowledge is going to help us get a better understanding of our planet as well. I mean, again, this planet came about because of other planets, right? And material that was out in space, and so the more that we understand space and our solar system, and what created this Earth, I think the better understanding we're going to have as to hopefully how to unravel some of the damage that we've done, because there's no denying it, regardless of where you stand on climate change. Again, in my opinion, this climate change has always been happening. I mean,
Right.
Again, the Earth has constantly been evolving since
Or we
its
would not
inception.
have had several ice ages.
Exactly.
It cools and heats up.
And so, but have we damaged the Earth to an extent? Absolutely. I think that, and we're, Florida's a good example. We're starting to undo some of the damages that we've done, especially like, what we did to the Everglades, under the Eisenhower administration, right, and things like that. We're starting to realize the impact of those kind of projects, but it takes time. And it takes technology. It takes finding alternative solutions. The problem right now is that we don't have the solutions to fix some of the problems that we have.
Technology will fix pollution. Technology will fix a lot of the supply chain issues, a lot of the raw material issues. We have to start thinking bigger. Because again, it's one or two things. We're either the only ones, or we're one of millions of other species.
Well, I mean, remember about 20 years ago when everybody was worried that the ozone layer was going to be depleted, and how we were all going to, have to start wearing, hazmat suits because we were going to be radiated by the lack of an ozone layer and all that. I mean, either we figured it out or it fixed itself or something, right?
Well, the fluorocarbons. That's when they started making the spray cans and things with different ingredients.
But that's kind of one of those things where, okay, that might have been one element of this, but really was my hairspray really, causing, a global crisis, in terms of the environment?
Well, I think as a country, we have certainly set a standard for our reduction in those
absolutely.
poisonous activities.
Correct.
Yeah. But we got to get the rest of the world involved. If we're doing 70%, and other ones are not reducing at all. It's not.
Well, again, what's China doing? What's India doing?
Nothing. Making money. That's all they're doing.
And I think that's the larger conversation, is that I get us wanting to be less polluting, better. Everyone wants clean air, clean water, and nutritious food. Yeah. And I'm more than willing to do what needs to get done for us to get to that point. Mm-hmm. But you making it to such a hyperbolic situation and calling me an earth murderer because I believe in eating red meat, when you wanting to eat your tofu is doing just as much damage to the earth that people don't understand. Like, it's not. Yes, okay, you're a vegetarian. That's great. You're still killing what needs to happen when it comes to your food.
Well, it's the the paper bag or the plastic bag situation. It's like, okay, the plastic was doing harm to our environment, but what do you think the paper bag is doing? It's like, where's that coming from, right?
So those environmentalists,
paper mills.
I know. Yeah. Right. Those environmentalists are coming from such a negative point of view, and again, almost like a scaring point of view. The world is going to end in 5 years. The world is going to end in 8 years. The world is going to end next year. Right. We've been hearing, but the market, Gore talk about that for years.
But the market will always provide a solution. And so, perfect example is, we were in St. Petersburg over the weekend, where they've famously banned plastic straws, right? And of course, paper straws, everybody knows, are notoriously horrible. I'd rather just not use it. But guess what? Now they have biodegradable straws that basically look and feel like plastic, and they are 100% biodegradable. The market in a capitalist society, in a free market, will always find a solution.
And I love it. And that's what you want the society to do, is to figure out a way to fix it. If you allow for the government to try to manipulate a solution, it's never going to get there. Yeah. And again, I think that we're seeing what's happening. And that's why I say it all the time. Manifest destiny to the stars, bitches. Like, that's what the U.S. should be. I don't care what anyone says that we're not supposed, as Americans, we're not supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Shut up and go eat a tofu. Who cares?
Well, just on that, and to kind of bring the show to a close, I highly recommend anybody that that has Apple TV to watch For All Mankind. Really puts a whole different spin on the space program and what could have been had our country maybe focused a little bit more on our space program and NASA and whatnot. But a phenomenal show. I binged both seasons, I think, in less than a week. So definitely check that out on Apple TV. All right.
That kind of time. My God.
You squeeze it in when you can. I mean, you just, All right. On behalf of Anibal David Cabrera, Chase Harrison, again, Hillsborough County Commission candidate, District 7, votechaseharrison.com. Any parting words for you, sir?
Kickoff party for the campaign will be January the 11th, 2022. So it's all ones and twos.
All right.
At my VFW post at Broad in Florida.
Okay, great.
7 to 9. And you may come out.
And I'm guessing hopefully it's on your website or on your social media? All right,
is.
perfect. So again, votechaseharrison.com. Anibal David Cabrera. Good?
I'm looking forward to the one thing. I'm looking forward to inflation and the Fed making its only 3 cuts. I'm very annoyed about that, but it is what it is.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be our final show. And then when we come back, we will be right at the beginning of the 2022 midterm season. Trust me, January, a couple weeks after the holidays is when all these campaigns kick off for the midterms. And it is going to be something to watch. It's going to be
a nightmare.
Yes, at every level of government. So we're going to have...
I'm so excited for the chaos and the cluster F that's going to happen in this coming cycle.
We're going to have plenty to talk about, many more candidates like our friend Chase Harrison here. So again, we appreciate you so much for watching. Again, make sure you sign up for the audio version of our podcast so you never miss an episode over at the Tech Overlords at Google, Apple, Spotify, Audible, Amazon, Odyssey, iHeartRadio, and now Samsung Podcasts. And of course, follow us, like, share, comment on all of our social media platforms. We appreciate you so much. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. Gosh, man, we'll see you in a couple weeks. All right. Love you. Good night, everybody.
Future.